All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes and Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. What's happening, Dave?
Ohtani watch.
Yes.
Isn't it riveting?
It's very riveting. There's absolutely no news. No one has a clue what's happening. And I'm loving the timeline reports. We were joking about this earlier because every baseball insider, you could tell they don't really know what's going on. And the go-to report is reporting on when you think you might hear an answer, right? And like the boldest insiders are like 24 hours. But others are like, give me 96, right? And no one cares. Like, no one's going to go back and say, that guy said it would be 24 hours. Right. And this guy said, like, nobody knows. Everyone's waiting. This guy, Shohei Ohtani, like, I'd like to believe that he's spending every second of every day combing over offers, making decisions. But what if he's just not? Yeah. Like, he's just pushing it off and he's playing, Xbox Fortnite, and walking his dog. Who knows? Like, who knows what this guy's doing? He could be.
He could be anywhere.
It doesn't matter. Like, whenever he calls and makes a decision, that team is going to be like, amazing, we'll send the private bird.
Yeah.
Let's rock here.
I mean, he's dictating this whole thing. You got to wonder, though, like, if you're Major League Baseball, do you not see this as like a massive opportunity lost? Like, this could have been great.
But what else could they have done? Like, what could you expect Ohtani to do that would be different?
Well, just announce that show up in town, like, publicly.
You mean in Nashville when they were down there for the winter meetings?
Well, you could have had his agent at the winter meetings, a la Scott Boras, holding court, talking about what it might take to get Shohei on your roster.
Yep, I'll grant you that.
That guy's been a ghost.
Yeah.
No one
knows who he is, what he looks like, where he's from, anything.
I mean, and you could have had just, Shohei comes down on the airport. You could get a camera crew out to the airport, footage of Shohei coming to Toronto, footage of Shohei leaving Toronto. He didn't have to say anything. He just could have acknowledged the fact that people care what he was up to.
Right. Yeah, I guess you could ask for some, like, a little bit more Hollywood to it. But he's not going to publicly say anything, like, when he's leaving the Dodger Stadium. He's not going to set up shop and say, kind of like the hot tubs, didn't love the showers,
No, we're not asking him to leave a Yelp review.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, people are like, well, you could get more out of it. I'll grant you that his agent being more forthright would be great, but I think he works for his client. Ohtani doesn't want it. Yes, there is obviously some benefit and the potential for viral moments if you see him coming and going from Dodger Stadium or leaving Dunedin or leaving Toronto or Chicago or whatever.
Want.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, technically,
trail of breadcrumbs. Like,
this guy could be sitting right beside us without a microphone, not saying anything, and the ratings would go through the roof.
Yeah.
Like, without saying anything, just seeing Shohei Ohtani right now. That'd be a big exclusive if we had him in studio without him saying anything.
Like, just footage of him walking into the Blue Jays facility. Mm-hmm. What would have been so wrong about that?
I guess this is where, like, the owners would probably try to push for that, but the players would say, well, what are you granting for us? Like, why is it on Ohtani to make Rob Manfred's job easier or to market and promote the sport?
I agree. Look,
every player has their own perspective.
I'm not suggesting that he shouldn't be able to do whatever the heck he wants to do, which is what he's doing. He's well within his rights. He's fine with me. I'm just saying, like, when you look at how, you can command a news cycle in the way the NFL does and in the way the NBA occasionally does. LeBron James 2010, The Decision, one of the great PR stunts of all time. Now, it kind of flopped, but it's still got 10 million people to watch it on ESPN from a Boys and Girls Club in Connecticut.
See, I'll give you that. The answer being on MLB Network or something like that could sell. Like, he's coming up tonight, prime time. It's going to be 8 o'clock. He's sitting down with whoever he's going to sit down with, and he will reveal where he's going. Yeah. That's something I think would be great. The build-up, I'd like to see him. I'm with you. I think you could use Kawhi Leonard as an example of that. When Kawhi flew into Toronto and was driving down the 427 and making his way to Yorkville, that was a scene.
It was fun.
Was it kind of ridiculous? Sure, but it was fun, and it was understood. All right, Kawhi's there. He wasn't trying to come in indiscreetly. No. He flew in. He got off a private bird. He walked out. There were cameras there. Everyone knew he was here. He wasn't running from it. He wasn't trying to hide it, but he didn't speak, right?
Yeah.
Now, who who was hiding there? Messiah and Bobby were. Remember, they were like they went backdoor into a hotel in Yorkville, and no one knew if they were in there, and there were fans and cameras outside for hours, and no one had seen them. So a lot of times, you actually, I think, can blame the teams.
Yeah,
the teams feel like it's in their best interest to
keep it quiet,
or they just feel like, out of respect to the players would prefer that. Because I don't think the teams are doing themselves any favors. Where maybe that's where Rob Manfred should start. Right? Like the player doesn't fall under his umbrella necessarily. That's the Players Association that may see a benefit in trying to amplify this. I could understand that case. But if you're Manfred and the owners and the people you work for are pulling stunts the way these managers are, like the GM in LA who was mortified that his manager had the audacity to say, yeah, we met with the guy.
I know.
Like it's everyone ridiculous. Knows you met with him. You're the Dodgers. We all know you were meeting with him.
That's the thing. Like they've taken it a little too far.
And that's not on Ohtani. Like I guess you could argue.
Well, it sort of is on Ohtani.
He doesn't want people speaking, but
his agent has issued a threat essentially.
Right.
A threat that says if you speak, it will be held against you.
Which does anyone really believe that?
Well, maybe not, but he said it apparently. Allegedly, reportedly.
And how would that get out? That's what I'd like to know. Nothing else gets out but the warning shot from Ohtani. That's the only thing the media was privy to.
I'll tell you why that got out, though, because the insiders want to explain why they don't have any insider information.
Right.
Because nobody's allowed to leak it. No, everyone's been frightened to death to leak it, let alone say it publicly like Dave Roberts said it.
Yeah, which again, he was, at first my thought was, okay, does Dave Roberts, is he telling us anything here? Is he so confident because he knows he's coming to the Dodgers and he's like, yeah, this is what's happening? Or does he know he's going to the Jays or someone else, and he's like, we're out anyway, so who cares?
Who cares? That's a good
question. But I really think it was just being aloof more than anything else, and not being an honest guy.
That's who he is.
Like he's like, I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, we met with him. It was great. Good guy. Like imagine that being held against you. That Dave Roberts was like, oh, he's a really good guy. It was cool. Well, it was fun to see him.
When you really think it through, if you're Dave Roberts and you've sat in a room with this guy. You've watched him play baseball. You know he's a guy of integrity. You know he's a man of honor. Like, can you really believe that if you really wanted to come to the Dodgers, that the last straw would be, sorry, Dave, you shouldn't have said that little bit about meeting with me. Of course not.
Of course that's not going to be held against them.
But anyway, that's all I'm saying is like Major League Baseball has such a tough time drawing in younger audiences and becoming social media buzzworthy. And here it was. This could have been a meme a minute. Shohei Ohtani walking into this room, coming into this airport, coming out of this airport, car caravans from the airport to the facility. Like
him being in Nashville would have been big. Yeah, like or his representative, like
even
someone
his
in there
in Nashville,
speaking every day to the media, because most agents would embrace that idea.
Yeah,
like they would love that idea.
Free camera time.
Free camera time. I can promote who I am, what I'm going to do for you. I can also promote my other clients. Right? Like there's a lot that can go into that.
Get?
Yes.
I mean, if you do a good job and come off as just like the puppet master of Major League Baseball, who's making it all happen, running the show, doing a great job for your client, gonna sign him to a record deal, get him where he wants to go. I mean, it's the greatest opportunity of an agent's life.
It is. And I'm curious like what the aftermath of the signing is going to look like, because there's been such a buildup. Like using this show as an example, it feels like we've hit almost every angle. Like with the exception of, okay, how much, are they going to win? Is there pressure on them to win? What do they do next? Like if you bring in Ohtani, are you going to keep spending? Do you continue to chat with Matt Chapman? You need a third baseman. What are you going to do in left field? There's a number of different elements that clearly can really start to get into kind of overdrive, so to speak, because it had become a reality where at this point it's only kind of conjecture, but it's been such a buildup. It's been talked about so much that let's say he signed in the next hour, it would be bedlam for sure for the rest of the night, for the rest of the week. Tomorrow would be a ton of Ohtani. But do we wake up on Monday and it's like, all right, we'll see you at spring training? Or does it stay consistently a part of the conversation for the next 3 months?
Oh, I think it would be. I mean, there's all kinds of stories.
But he doesn't talk. He doesn't
talk, but look, I tell you what, story, you listed off a bunch of them. Another one would be how do Bichette and Vladdy feel? Because guess what? Can't pay both of those guys now if you got Ohtani in for 600 times 10.
Well, you better be willing to pay at least one of them.
Probably going to play one of them, but which one and for how long?
Because that's what I'm trying to figure out, like what this pitch is from the Blue Jays, because that is one thing that seems to be coming out from insiders who know or don't know or whatever, who have been in Nashville, like legitimate journalists who cover the sport really well.
The best educated guess.
Yes, exactly. And there's this indication that like the Blue Jays have put their best foot forward.
Mm-hmm.
Is that selling the baseball team or is that selling the business?
Yeah.
Because there really does feel like there are two different elements to this, even in terms of the two primary teams we keep talking about in the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, where the Dodgers are a business, but they're a massively lucrative business anyway.
Right.
They sell out anyway.
With or without
They're
Ohtani.
a great brand. They're worth billions of dollars. They're internationally renowned.
Yes.
And it feels like they're going after Ohtani because they believe he can help them win. Or there's no doubt the Blue Jays believe that too. Anyone would believe that. But it feels like from a Jays perspective, and I don't know if this is true or not because, again, we're not privy to everything that's going on, is it's tied as much to this guy's going to show up and help us win, but he's also tied to selling tickets and jerseys and getting in Japan and trying to build your brand. And what is the side business going to benefit from this?
And coinciding with the fact that you just spent $300 million renovating your stadium, suddenly you're asking some of your best customers in the really good seats to pony up 2x, 3x. I don't even know.
Big
You're hearing
money.
different stories. Ticket prices are going way up, not by percentages, but by multiples. And so that is sort of a thing where you're like, they got to sign this guy to justify that.
Right.
Say,
Come
this
see
is why,
this guy.
This is why we're asking you to spend way more than you've ever spent at our ballpark because we got the best player on the planet, maybe the best athlete on the planet going, and you're going to have to pony up to see that. You're right. And then you see, like I was talking to a sports business guy this week, and he was like, you pay him $60 million, you could probably make half of that back. You can probably get, like, in terms of, they're talking about how you can raise the price of your jersey patch. Suddenly your jersey patch is going to be, it could be a Japanese company that'll buy it, right? Something that's maybe going for $6 or $7 million a year can go for 10, 20, 30 million bucks a year. Like the opportunities to monetize the guy might make the 60 million look pretty small in the end.
Well, that's why I think they're in it, because I think if it's purely a baseball move, the Blue Jays, the biggest contract they've ever handed out is $150 million.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're going to skyrocket to 5 or 550 because he brings them 7 wins above replacement. I find that hard to believe.
It's not about the wins.
No, I think it's about the marketing. Obviously, the wins come with it.
The wins are important.
But, in order to even get into the room, you need the invitation. Ohtani was the one that was inviting people in because if not, I'm sure all 30 teams would be like, we'll come in and talk to you. That'd be great. Yeah. But he's not going to waste his time with teams that he's not interested in. So the invitation begins it. And then to get Shapiro and Atkins in there, it's ownership that basically give them the go-ahead to accept the invitation. Right? Because you're not going to walk in that room and try to get a bargain. You're not going to try to negotiate some great deal to come play up in Toronto. You understand, if you're being serious about this, you're handing the guy the most lucrative contract in sports history.
Yeah.
Like, that's likely what's coming in North American sports history.
I mean, you think about it, Hayes, like, it's almost impossible for me to believe. If it's a 10-year deal, and who knows what it's going to be, but that's a lot of people are throwing out 10 years times 5 or 600 million. Okay? This guy turns 30 in July. Okay? There's no way he can live up to that contract.
No.
Turning 30 in July for 10 years.
Right.
Doing what he's doing to his body on a yearly basis.
And he's not going to pitch the first year anyway.
Yeah, which is probably a blessing in some ways. That might extend his career a little bit. But, like, the idea that this guy's going to be effective for 10 years doing what he's doing, it's not going to happen.
No.
So, to your point, that's about the business more than it is about value in terms of wins above replacement for 10 seasons.
Right, exactly. It's the brand that is Ohtani and how lucrative that is.
It's a statement
and what
signing.
It represents.
It's
a statement signing.
It means we are relevant globally now.
Yes.
Now, the Dodgers could say we're relevant globally.
Anyway, with or without.
Already.
That's
the LA hat transfers. Like,
they're all good.
Kids are wearing that LA hat in streets across this planet.
Right.
Just like the NY of the New York Yankees travels beyond baseball into hip-hop culture and all the rest of it. But, like this, it's not just about the baseball. That's for sure. And the beauty of Ohtani, I think the fascinating thing about Ohtani is his decisions haven't been about what most pro athletes' decisions have been, which kind of, I think, is why we're sitting here in Toronto going, it's possible he could come here.
Well,
he's left money on the table before. He's gone to places people didn't expect him to go before. Nobody expected him to go to the Anaheim Angels.
No one did. Now, back then, there was no DH in the National League. Like, that's a significant development from when he got here to where he is now. The DH is now universal. He can go anywhere at this point. But it does feel eerily similar to the Kawhi Leonard situation and even their personalities. Like Kawhi, you couldn't get an answer out of Kawhi.
Yeah.
No one knew what the hell Kawhi was thinking. And
but we didn't know, but we knew this. We knew this, though. The things that did leak out of that was all money-driven.
He was looking for money, and in the end, though, he was also looking to get home. Like he was looking to get to LA, and I think that's why he brokered the deal. But I also like two different people, different context. But I'm not sold on this idea that it's only the Dodgers and the Jays.
Oh no,
because I learned that lesson through Kawhi. Right? Remember the final hours before Kawhi made a decision, everyone had said it's Lakers or Raptors.
Yeah.
That's it. And then all of a sudden the Clippers come out of nowhere.
I know.
And I wouldn't be shocked at all with all the secrecy that everyone's saying Dodgers and Jays and everyone's got a pie chart and the pie charts, the calculations are moving even though nothing's changed.
No, exactly.
I would not be shocked at all if there was a third team, including the Angels, that he's talking to, that he's intrigued by, and it would break any second now. Boom, he's going here. And you're like, okay. We just spent a week and a half talking about the Dodgers and the Jays.
You're right.
And it turns out this guy the whole time has been brokering a deal with someone else.
Mariners, maybe.
Mariners, possibly the Giants.
Seattle ties. He spent some time in Seattle.
Yep.
Obviously, Ichiro played in Seattle. And
big Japanese community there.
Gets in Japanese baseball. But I'll tell you what, man. Like the more, like you go through, like I've been looking at his history, just kind of going back over his story, right? Just to try and look for clues because we don't know what he's doing in the moment. So you maybe look for past behavior to figure out what he might do from here on out. And a lot of signs point to Toronto, man. Like he grew up in northern Japan. You know, like it's not warm there. Played in Sapporo. It's like pretty cold there. Not unlike Toronto. Loves domes.
Yes.
Like he played in the Sapporo Dome.
Right.
When he was a pro in Japan.
That has been coming up recently.
Yeah.
That the Rogers Center, the dimensions, the look, the vibe, the feel, very similar to what he was basically raised on.
Loves domes. Played on artificial turf as a kid and growing up and becoming a legend in Japanese baseball. You know, he loves all that stuff. And then the whole thing about how, like, it's not about platform. Like Brian Cashman in 2017, when there was the big frenzy around him, you know, the GM of the New York Yankees basically sniffed and said, this guy doesn't want to come to a big market.
Yeah.
Wants to go to a smaller place. Like he has the nerve to tell the New York Yankees, not interested.
And it's happened again this time.
Yeah.
By all accounts, he's told that what we have heard is he's like, I'm not interested in New York.
Yeah.
Like New York's not going to happen.
Exactly. So now the Dodgers, like
LA's still a monster.
But he did choose the Angels over the Dodgers back in 2017, right?
Yeah. No, listen, until we hear news otherwise, the Jays are obviously legitimately in this. And I don't think it's to boost the price. I don't think they're being used. I think they would have sniffed that out by now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that's, to use the Kawhi angle, you could tell Masai after a while when it was like, what'd you say? We got to get Paul George? No.
Well, he thought at that point they thought
Masai sniffed it out.
Yeah.
They're like, you're using us here.
Yeah.
We know it. Thanks for coming out. See you later.
Yeah, we're not involved in this anymore.
We're not doing this thing anymore.
No.
They sniffed it out. I think this far into the process, if the Jays felt like they were being used, they would have sniffed it out by now.
Yeah.
And I think they'd be like, fine, we're out of here. Like, you're not using us to boost it up to $600 million or $625 or whatever. So I think
in some ways that's a tough thing to calculate, right? Like it's hard.
What do you mean?
It's hard. Like when there's nothing coming back from the other side.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
you just kind of, you're sitting here twiddling your thumbs waiting. Your offer's on the table and you don't hear anything.
Right.
I mean,
well, that's assuming they're not hearing anything.
Right.
There is a possibility they're still talking daily. I don't, who knows what's going on behind the scenes, but Mark Shapiro's been doing it long enough to, I think, pick up on P's and Q's.
But the one thing about it though is, like, his history tells you, and that's not to say history can't change and his attitude might not have changed, but he doesn't seem like the guy that's going to be squabbling over every last nickel, right? Like he left, like people say he left like $100 or $200 million on the table when he came from Japan the first time. Because if he would have waited a little longer and been a free agent instead of sort of being an amateur,
the bidding,
with all the caps on what the Angels could offer him, he came over for $2.3 million in the first year.
Right.
Right? Whereas if he would have waited a little longer, he could have been an unfettered free agent, get whatever he wanted.
It's happening right now with the pitcher coming over.
Yeah, with Yamamoto. So now I'm not saying that his agent isn't gonna shake down everybody and say, well, they're
and he's going to make it anyway.
575, 595 on the table,
yeah.
600. Who can get me to 600? Like, it could be an auction.
Sure.
Maybe it is to some degree, but don't you get the sense, like with everything we've seen from the guy, the fact that he doesn't want to talk about, the fact that he's left money on the table many other times in his career. I mean, it feels like he's going to go to the place that feels right.
I think that's
money
accurate.
is going to be there either way.
And the money in Japan is going to be there either way. Like this guy is going to make, he is, for the rest of his life, he may not be Ichiro, but he's close.
He's getting there.
And he might pass Ichiro. He really might with these MVPs and what he's doing on both sides of the plate, the mound. He's an ambassador over there. He's making a fortune. He's going to make a fortune here. I would think at a minimum what was understood when all these teams walked in was we haven't established the ceiling yet, but this is the floor.
Right.
Right? Like it's $500 million to walk in, and everyone's like, fine, we're in.
Yeah.
So once you get into that level,
once you're at $500 million,
then it basically is I'm going to pick where I'm going to go. I'm not going to choose for the next decade to go here for an extra $10 million or $15 million. Once you have the floor set, and I would assume it was set before anything even started, then I think they're comfortable from there. But
well, and you wonder too, like you've heard stuff about, and who knows if this is even true, but the speculation is, will there be opt-outs at certain points in the deal?
Right.
In case it's going sideways, he doesn't like it.
And it won't be team options.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It'll be player
options.
options.
It'll be all his option.
Yes.
It won't be team options at all.
No.
But, you wonder about that stuff, and who knows. But I'll tell you what, you get a weird feeling that it's going to be, I'm with you, like you get a weird feeling that it's going to be something you don't expect.
Yeah. I think everything's on the table at this point. And the fact that Jays are in it and have gone this far is unexpected.
Yeah.
Like that was an impossibility a year ago.
We weren't talking about
Nobody. Like all season it was understood this guy's going to be a free agent, the money. No one referenced the Blue Jays.
No. Remember at the All-Star game, Vladdy and him had a nice little exchange.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting here going, oh, well, Vladdy's trying to recruit him. And, remember that? And everybody's like, Vladdy recruiting him. Good luck with that, buddy. Yeah, he ain't coming here. But you know what? Maybe
they've gone this far.
They've come this far, man.
Yeah, they've gone this far, and it speaks to what's happening like internationally in pro sports, where we believe, let's say $500 million's on the table. Jon Rahm is going to get $500 million to play golf for LIV Golf in shorts and scramble and 54 holes and shotgun starts. Like that has nothing to do with what's going on with Ohtani, but you look at where the international sports scene is going, where the Saudis are like, yeah, we'll give you $500 million.
Right.
And over here, it's like $500 million for Ohtani for 10 years. It's like that guy's going to play 160 games for you every year for the next decade.
You hope.
He's way more marketable than Jon Rahm.
Oh, yeah.
And Rahm is going to make $500 million.
Yeah.
Go play golf.
So much for that.
Still play majors.
So much for that LIV Golf PGA Tour merger.
Well,
I mean, it doesn't look like,
no. And everyone around the PGA Tour is panicking, and they're all like, even people on the Golf Channel who are very connected with the PGA Tour, clearly, they're like, it is in shambles right now.
Yeah.
Because Rahm it's flipped. He's gone. Like I don't think it's official yet, but everyone understands he's done.
Yeah.
And he is 29, a superstar. He just made a fortune on the tour last year. Mm-hmm. He's the defending Masters champ.
I know.
And he was adamant, I'm not going to happen. It's a goofy thing. That money won't change my life. And then he's like, nah, screw it, I'm going.
When my career earnings are what? He's made $77 million to date. And they say, we can go 500. Like, think about that. Like, make your career earnings look like a drop in the bucket compared to
put it into perspective.
Guarantee you.
They are going to give him more money than the PGA Tour has for a complete purse for the whole season.
Right.
That means the winners and the guys who just make the cut and still make the 15 grand.
Crazy.
The whole collective pot of the PGA Tour is going to go in Jon Rahm's bank account like overnight.
And he'll be in majors for years to come.
And he's still in majors, and it's crazy. So more on that later this afternoon. Shams Charania coming up. He will join us of The Athletic, also FanDuel TV. He'll get his take on the Raptors. It's ugly last night, man. It's not good. Like the offense is ugly. We heard from Masai a lot last year and in the offseason where he really didn't enjoy watching this team play last year. There's no way you can be enjoying this.
No.
This new form. It doesn't look any different from my standpoint.
No.
Their half-court offense is still terrible.
Well, they're less selfish, but so they pass
the ball. Are they? Dennis Schroeder, how many shots did he put up last night?
Well, that's Dennis. Dennis being Dennis. But they look, I mean, I'm just saying, like, they pass the ball around. The offense is a little more, instead of ISO ball Fred, ISO ball Pascal, there's a little more ball movement. And obviously, Scotty Barnes gets the ball a lot more than he did when Fred and Pascal were hogging it. The old guys against the young guys sort of thing. That dynamic wasn't great.
Yeah.
And that was probably the reason why Masai wanted change. But, yeah, like, to say Nick Nurse was the problem, better fire the coach. This ain't about coaching.
I think you're right about that. Although Darko Rajokovic, I don't know. Like, we'll see. It's early for him, but he's got to figure out.
Let's not even get to that, but, like, Nick Nurse wasn't the problem.
Nick Nurse was not the issue. No, it was a talent issue. It was a depth issue, and it's very clear early in the season. So Shams coming up, his take on where the Raps are at. The in-season tournament is in Vegas. We got 2 games today, the final on Saturday. Catch up with Shams. We got the O-Dog and the Super Panel tonight. Leaf Sens Battle of Ontario on TSN 4 and on TSN 5 tonight. So we'll catch up with O-Dog later. Luke Wilson coming up. Hayes and Bro on the clock with the pick tonight, the Thursday nighter. Dave Feschuk of the Star in here on Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. The O-Dog will join us from Ottawa. Leafs Sens tonight, the Battle of Ontario. I'd say both teams need one tonight, but more so the Sens. I mean, Ottawa, they're 10-10. Mm-hmm. They've had a really tough start. They've had a soft schedule, a lot of home games. They need to get going here, like badly.
DJ Smith needs it. You got somebody named Jacques Martin looking over your shoulder as the coaching support staff.
Right. He's there.
Liaison.
Yeah, he's there just to help out.
Just sitting around helping out.
Although I think he's 71. Like, I don't think he's playing. He's not getting behind a bench anytime soon.
But he's there, though.
But he is hanging around.
71 means nothing, man. He's still.
You don't think so?
I mean, like, is he going to coach for 10 years? No, but could he coach the rest of this year? Of course he could.
I guess technically he could, but I don't see that being the case. But he's there. And it obviously is the ownership saying you need some help. There's no doubt about that.
And isn't it the ownership saying we need some eyes on the situation?
Yeah, we need someone to really take a look at what's going on here. So the O-Dog coming up a little bit later on. Ryan Dempster will join us. The Ohtani news is not out yet. Maybe our next guest is going to break it.
Wouldn't that be something?
He is connected. I mean, it wouldn't be shocking. A lot of stuff. I've seen him break other news like outside of the basketball world before. He is senior NBA insider for The Athletic and Stadium and co-host of Run It Back on FanDuel TV. Shams Charania. How you doing, Shams?
Bryan, Dave, appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you for doing this. Are you sniffing around the Ohtani news at all, or is that out of your wheelhouse right now?
You know, you never know what makes your way to your phone. That's why I keep my phone line open. I've been surprised over the years, you know, what comes across. So never say never, but I'll leave that to the experts, you know, people like Ken Rosenthal.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it to them at this point. As for, you know, what's going on in the NBA, the Raptors, it's great to have you on here because, we were just talking about the Raps. They lost last night against Miami, and it feels like, you know, publicly, we don't know what the plan is for Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster. They keep saying they're evaluating things. And I think it's starting to get frustrating for the fan base. I'm curious where you stand on the evaluation of this team and what is holding Masai and Bobby back from making some sort of a determination on which direction they're going to take this team.
I think the goal in Toronto has been always the last several years, even before the championship and leading into that year, is to compete and to compete for a playoff seed, compete to go as far in the playoffs as possible. And that's why the entire league was looking at the Raptors as a swing team in the trade market last season with Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. Usually when you have players of that caliber, you trade them before they enter the final year of their deal. You know, that's usually what happens. Fred VanVleet ends up being on an expiring. His contract runs out, then he goes to Houston. And so I think the league was gearing up for that. And then they make the trade for Jakob Poeltl. And you see a team under Nick Nurse that's trying to reload and trying to compete in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Didn't happen for them last year, and they got upset in the play-in tournament. And so then you hire a rookie head coach, and again, they're trying to reload, and they're trying to get back in a position where they can compete. And I think that's what you're seeing. But there's no question. Now, again, just like Fred VanVleet last year, they have Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, both guys on expiring deals. both lining up to be free agents that you could lose for nothing. And I think everyone around the league is, again, keeping an eye on everyone on this roster, whether it's Pascal, whether it's OG, whether it's Jakob Poeltl. The only untouchable there is, from everything I've gathered and garnered, is Scotty Barnes. And so I think it's a wait-and-see approach. Everything about Masai Ujiri that other executives understand and know is he's always going to be diligent, and usually things in Toronto go up against the deadline and go up against the February 8th mark in the calendar in terms of seeing exactly where the team is, where they stand in the playoffs. Are there going to be serious offers? But I can tell you guys, Atlanta felt like they were close and that they had a pretty good package for Pascal Siakam last summer in July. And there was some, pretty intense conversations back and forth, a deal centered around DeAndre Hunter, AJ Griffin, and draft compensation, and the deal did not get done. So we'll see as we get closer over the next several months where this goes. But I think whether it's Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, those are the names that are going to continue to be mentioned.
Yeah, and that's where the frustration comes, I think, for the fan base. Is like last year at the deadline, they added, like you mentioned, they bring in Poeltl, which shocked a lot of people. And the messaging from the front office was anything we got today in terms of what was on the table will be there in the summer. We can make moves in the summer. And then Van Vliet kind of shocks them because I think they were at a minimum hoping for a sign-and trade. That did not end up developing when he ends up going to Houston, so he walks for nothing. And they end up bringing back Pascal, bringing back OG, which leads me to believe, like Masai and company, they'd like to keep these guys. Like they want to believe, Shams, that this is going to work. But I don't see how that's going to be the case come the deadline. I mean, what are you bracing for in terms of those two players in particular that if it gets past the deadline, would you just assume that they're going to try to re-sign both those guys or at least one of those guys next summer?
No question. I think their preference would be that this team stays together and it competes. I don't think talent has been the issue over the last couple, 2-3 years in Toronto. The guys that are on this roster, Bobby Webster, Masai Ujiri, they've built a talented roster, and that's why I'm sure around Toronto and that front office and in that coaching staff, it's about how can these guys all come together collectively and win. Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr., Jakob Poeltl, Chris Boucher at times. Like, these guys have talent. Dennis Schroeder coming in at point guard. They have some talent. They have a roster at least that should be able to compete for back-end home court advantage, compete for a playoff spot, and for whatever reason, collectively, Masai Ujiri spoke to it. Like, I'm not throwing any guys under the bus. Masai Ujiri spoke to it as far as how they play, their playing style, playing selflessly, and I think those are all issues that have popped up over the course of the last couple of years. And in their best hopes, it's getting these guys on the same page and performing and keeping this group together. But eventually, kind of like Chicago, success, productiveness, those are all things that matter as well. And if you're continually not getting the job done, at some point you're going to need to see changes, because if it's not going to get done, you need to look elsewhere. You need to look at other players. Is there another construction, another group that could get the job done?
Shams, when you look around the league and you look at teams that are sort of in that mushy middle where the Raptors find themselves, not bad enough to really get a high lottery pick, not good enough to be a contender. We heard Bobby Webster talking about how, hey, we're building from the middle. There seems to be a real aversion to tanking like the Pistons and going right to, to the drywall of a situation and really sort of put yourself at the bottom of the standings for too long, because that can get ugly. But what are you hearing from executives about that philosophy of building from the middle and how it can or cannot be effective?
Yeah, that's usually not the place you want to be, right? Like, you want to pick a side. Either you're competing for championships or you're competing for high draft picks, and you're competing to get assets and make the team better. So if you are going the route of trading one of your top guys and getting multiple draft picks and building for the future, you can still compete and night to night make it hard for other teams. You saw what the Jazz did last summer. Or 2 summers ago, they traded Rudy Gobert, traded away Donovan Mitchell, and they still competed last season around Lowry Markin, around other players that they traded for. So that is also a possible path. If you go down the path of an Atlanta trade, or if you find another taker for OG Anunoby, do you find a package that still makes you competitive while still replenishing you with assets for a guy that you might lose in free agency. I think there's no doubt around the league that there's an expectation that the Raptors are going to have to look at doing something, especially if they continue to struggle.
With Shams Charania, again, NBA insider, the Athletic Stadium co-host of Run It Back on FanDuel TV. So we're hitting the end of the inaugural in-season tournament here. The 4 teams left, they're in Vegas. You got a 2-pack of games tonight. Indy versus Milwaukee in the East, New Orleans versus LA in the West. This was Adam Silver's, pet project here, right? He's trying to do something different. This is a very European vibe that he's trying to bring to North American sports. How happy has the NBA collectively been with the product so far, and what do you think they're hoping will happen this weekend that could lead to this tournament really sinking their teeth into the North American sports scene?
Definitely the care factor, the aspect of the players leading the charge, and they've been vocal. Guys that I've spoken to, guys said it publicly. The fact that it's for $500,000 per player, I think, no matter who you are, we had Lou Williams on my FanDuel show running back saying whether you're a star player or you're a guy at the end of the bench, especially if you're a guy at the end of the bench, you care about that $500,000. And so again, since I've been coming to the league, can't remember the last time you're paying attention. That you see fans paying attention to who's playing next week, who's playing on Saturday, like who's playing in this in-season tournament. Like that's never been the thing. So I think the care factor for the regular season in late November into December, and now you have a couple teams in Indiana with Tyrese Halliburton. New Orleans has a bunch of young players when you think about guys like Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, and even Milwaukee. Giannis Antetokounmpo just turned 29 years old. He's one of the faces of the league. He's still on the other side, not on the wrong side of 30, but he's still young enough, even though he's been around the league for so long. And I think LeBron James is the one guy where if you're LeBron, if you're Steph Curry, if you're Kevin Durant, do these guys really care about the in-season tournament? Steph Curry clearly did. Kevin Durant clearly did. And I think LeBron James has put the onus on himself, whether it's just because it's the inaugural season of this or not. But he clearly seems to care as well about this. So I think the care factor has been the biggest thing for the league, and obviously the prize money helps.
Shams, we obviously know that this is the first year they've done it. Do you see them making changes going forward? Have you heard much buzz about how they might want to tweak this format, quibbles or complaints about the way it's gone down, or how do you see it?
The two ways that I think that the league will look at, and I think they're open to anything. This is the first season. There's going to be changes going into next year. The point differential that we saw and you guys saw in Toronto a little bit, where DeMar DeRozan got upset when Pascal Siakam or the Raptors were trying to score late in the game for point differential. I think that is something that's going to be looked at. And then the courts, especially some of the courts that were red on red, that are not easy on the eyes for viewers. But there's no question. The league wants the courts to pop. It's just a matter of how much and how much is too much. And I do think whether it's point differential in the courts, the league is going to look at how to improve that. But overall, I think there has been a lot of positive feedback throughout.
He is, again, senior NBA insider for The Athletic and Stadium and co-host of Run It Back on FanDuel TV, Shams Charania. Really enjoyed this, Shams. Thank you for doing this. We'll do it again down the road.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
So, yeah, you got 4 teams left. We were talking about this earlier where, they reseed it, and there were 4 groups, 2 conferences, 2 in the East, 2 in the West. And now for the finals or for the semis tonight, you got Indiana against Milwaukee and New Orleans versus LA. But I think what they need to get to is get rid of the East and West. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're all going to be consolidated in Vegas anyway, there's no home court advantage. Right. There's no travel issue. And if Adam Silver, who keeps saying this, he's like, we want to get to where the NFL is. Mm-hmm. And I understand that is, the Super Bowl is AFC, NFC. But the point being is a team from the AFC could play a team versus the NFC on Monday Night Football, and the whole country's in on that. Right. It's not like, wow, there isn't a East Coast team, so the ratings are down. No. Seattle plays the Niners, people in New York are watching, and vice versa. I think they should get to a point where you could have any combination of either 4 teams in the final, like 4, or certainly the idea of them reseeding, and you could get Lakers, Clippers in the final, or Knicks versus Nets in the final, or Chicago versus Boston. Like, why does it have to be East versus West in the end?
No, it makes sense.
I think it'd be great if it's going to be a unique event.
Yeah, you're right. No, I've heard people say the groups should just be the divisions, but I'm with you. Like, mix it up.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun.
Make it really unique.
Make it different. Exactly. Why are you just playing in division?
Yeah.
Why just Eastern Conference, Western Conference? No, I'm with you. I think it's a great way to go. Like, this, to me, this has been a home run. Like, this is
for a one-off.
Yeah.
For a sporting kind of fan base in North America that's not that familiar with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's gone as well as they can. And I think what Shams said is exactly why it's worked, because the players have cared. And what I think the NBA figured out is it's the 12th guy on the bench that's driving it, because the 12th guy gets $500,000. So that means the star player is like, I got to perform, man.
Yeah.
Like, I got to win this, not just for myself getting 500, because that guy down the bench who hasn't played in 2 months, he's like, we got to get to Vegas.
Yeah, we heard Giannis the other night, talking about how
he doesn't care.
He didn't even know they got $100,000 guaranteed to go to the Final Four, right?
Right.
He was like, the rich get richer, like big deal to him, one of the richest guys in the league. But you're right, like Shams is right too. Like, the more you're around people that have a lot of money and you happen to brush shoulders with them in the pro sports world, the more you realize they like more money.
They like more money.
They do like more money, and they don't like giving their money away. And if they're going to have a free $500,000 for winning a couple games in Vegas, they're going to win a couple games in Vegas for that free $500,000.
Absolutely. I think these 2 games in the final will be like really contested.
Oh yeah,
really good games.
Well, and guys, you're hearing all this chatter. Oh yeah, well, it's gambling money. If you're a
lot of them are going to go right.
If you're
out.
a $50 million player, this is just like pocket change to go to the tables after the final, right?
That's why Vegas loves it.
No kidding.
They're like, come on in, boys.
Yeah,
come on in, because 2 teams are going to win tonight, and they're there until Saturday.
Yeah.
So if you win tonight, if you're Milwaukee and let's say the Lakers, man, they are going to have a good time tonight in Vegas. And Vegas will be bringing out the red carpet too. Like the clubs will be packed. I haven't heard anything on, ticket sales and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know what the story is there in terms of, I'm sure they're hoping if this builds and builds, I'm sure the dream is in 10 years, 20 years, this becomes something where it's like, it kind of is like a mini Super Bowl.
Right.
Like, if it's in Vegas every year, you got to get to Vegas. You got to get there to see an NBA Cup.
I'm looking at the secondary market. It doesn't.
I'm sure it's not great.
There's good seats available for pretty reasonable.
Because you can't prepare for it, right? Like, if you're a Pacers diehard, you didn't know they were going to make it.
That's the thing.
You're going to change your whole life to get down there to maybe see them play 1 game.
That's exactly it.
But
it's a pretty impromptu trip.
It is.
But there are people who make it, and there's just people who find themselves in Vegas and they'll go to the game. But that's the way Vegas is, right? People just go places.
Well, I wonder if it'll get hurt if and when they get an NBA team.
Right.
Like, if you live in Vegas right now, you might be like, I can go see LeBron play. Like, I can see Giannis play. This is great. But if you have your own NBA team, does it take away a little bit of the
that's a few years away still.
build-up?
So
Yeah.
you're right.
It's not on the horizon right now.
But still,
eventually
I still think it's, just because you got a team there doesn't mean everybody doesn't want to go there.
Yeah. No, exactly. Vegas is Vegas.
It's the place everybody can agree on.
Everyone loves Vegas.
That's
you
why
can find something.
U.S. national team holds training camp there in the summertime when they're going to the Olympics.
Yep.
And
Summer League.
It's why the Summer League's there. It's why a lot of
NHL draft.
A lot of trainers base their operations out of there for the summertime for NBA players. That in L.A. And then people are going back and forth between L.A. and Vegas all summer, right? So, yeah, why wouldn't you do it? It's been a genius play, I think. I mean, I was very skeptical of it. I thought, who's going to buy into this? I didn't think the players would. But it's amazing how you can be wrong on stuff like this. And, like, to me, this is a ready-made formula for the NHL. Like, this is how you do it. You can turn November and December games into meaningful games and have a lot more fun. I don't think they're going to do it.
I don't think they will with Bettman, right?
No.
Yes. A new commissioner will have their own, because that's what happened here. I don't think this is happening if David Stern is the commissioner.
No.
But Silver came in, immediately was talking about this years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And it finally was implemented. He finally sold the owners on it. You're right, though. It's a brilliant idea, because they realized they're like, opening night is big, and then we're asleep until Christmas. We got 2 months we got to fill.
Yeah.
Here's the NBA Cup.
And
it's different.
And the other thing you think about is, like, when you grow up playing sports, everything's a tournament. You got tournament like hockey. When you play hockey, you're playing 5 tournaments a year. You go just for the
people
weekend.
are used to it.
Yeah, people like the tournament culture. It's like does it mean any? Like, does the NBA Cup actually mean anything? I don't know. It might one day. You know, Darko, the other coach Darko at Raptors practice was saying they should rename it the Kobe Bryant Cup or something else like that, you know. But you know what? Maybe 20 years from now, people will care about it.
Yeah.
You know?
And they'll add to it, right? They'll change it. It'll go from 4 to 8, then it'll be like March Madness. It'll be a bracket, Sweet 16. I don't think they'll get to that point.
Who knows?
But they'll add and figure out what works and what doesn't.
Right.
No question. All right. Leaf Sense tonight. We'll start teeing that up. We're tracking Ohtani and what else is going on in baseball as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Ryan Dempster coming up in the next hour. The O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, live from Ottawa, the Battle of Ontario tonight. I'm looking forward to this game. Feels like it's been a long time since the Leafs played. I was down there on Saturday when Boston was in town. It was a great game. And, you know, two ways to look at this. The Leafs have been off a while. Does that mean they come out flying? Or do they come out flat? I think it'll say a lot about this team and the way they're programmed. Because this is a big game. Battle of Ontario. There'll be a lot of Leaf fans there. We'll get more into that into the next hour. Dave Feschuk's in here from the Star. We're tracking the Ohtani watch. No one knows exactly what's happening or when it's going to happen. But more on that. The Raptors losing last night. The Leafs in action tonight, a Thursday nighter with a total of 30.5 points. And Al's brother will join later this afternoon. Hazenbro on the clock. We need a win tonight, Dave.
Uh-oh.
We're in a bad place. We're in a very dark place. But I feel good about our pick tonight. So we'll get it to you in about an hour and a half.
Can't wait.
Rick Wilson coming up and Al's brother as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.